Welcome, 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 welcome to another Wins program. So excited to have you here. My name is Marlon Smith, and I have to tell you this: you are in for a treat. I want you to type in the chat box. Did you like the fact that we had music? Can you just type in the chat box? Let me know. Let us know. That was from our one and only Chris Bravo Magnificent Jackson. Okay, and so I thought it was cool. I said, man, let it play. We'll come on at 11:03 because I just thought it was amazing. And what about you? Type in the chat box. Did you like it? Adele said yes. Thank you, Adele. You know, because I think music sets the atmosphere. Come on, y'all. I mean, what's your favorite song? Type it in the chat box. What's your favorite song? You know, one of mine is Stairways to Heaven. Is that the Isley Brothers or Commodores? Come on, somebody help me out. You know, my mind, you know, my heart's there, but my mind, y'all, okay? So what's one of your favorite songs? I mean, you know, and I know some of y'all like Michael Jackson. Okay, you know, you type that in there as well. But I just think music sets the tone. You know, right now I can go back in my mind, and when I hear a song, it triggers me. It takes me back. Oh, wow, Amazing Grace. Woo, thank you, Cecilia. That is powerful. Amazing Grace, right? Okay, Jennifer said it's the Isley Brothers. Thank you, Jennifer. Right? Because, man, I'm just hyped. Chris is magnificent, y'all. I mean, you talk about, you know, somebody who just, I mean, I got on, I was like, what? We got music? What? So this is Wins, y'all. We do it bigger and better every single day. And so today we're going to be talking about debts and loans. Oh, my goodness. Okay, wait until Tony comes on because we got a question for y'all. It is a deep question. It's going to open it up. I'm telling you. And so, you know, but before we begin, I want to go ahead and talk about our scripture because, you know, God is our source. And not ashamed to say that, you know, just to profess the goodness of God. And with that being shared, you know, we always have a script for each one of our sessions, if you would, because it's the word of God. God is our foundation. And so when we talk about debts and loans, you can write this down. We'll put it up on the screen as well. But Proverbs 22:7, check this out. Proverbs 22:7 says, the rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is the slave to the lender, right? Let that sink in. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is the slave to the lender. So what does that mean to you? Type that in the chat box. Love to see what your responses are. What does that mean? You know, because the word of God is present, right? You know, past, today, and future. And I think that's a relevant word when you think about, you know, the credit card debt and you think about, you know, people, you know, living beyond their means. But the rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is to the lender. So let's go ahead and bring my colleague up. Brother man, Dr. Tony Jackson, because I want us to unpack this scripture because I think this is very relevant for 2020. So Tony, how are you doing this morning? Oh, you're on mute, brother.
Man, I got this etiquette about, you know, Zoom. So, you know, when you ain't talking, you mute. And I forgot to right. This morning. But yeah, man, today is a phenomenal day. It's a day that the Lord has made. We shall be glad and rejoice in it. Brother, Proverbs 22:7. Clearly, the rich rule over the poor. The borrower is servant to the lender. And man, I was just really, Lisa and I were talking last night on you know, our date night that we do every Friday night. And we're just talking about even like politicians and political environment and whether you red, blue, it doesn't matter. But when you think about all the money that goes into this campaign thing, and now, like, right? And if you watch the 13th Amendment or 13th Amendment, the documentary and different things, and you realize that all the money that these people are raising, I mean, Joe Biden's set records raising money. We got, you know, there's reports of Trump's friends giving $75 million and all this. And so you have all these people that give all this money, and then these politicians get in the office, and what? I mean, it's like, you know, they have to, I think it's almost impossible for them not to do some things for those big donors, right? And when it says it here in the word that the rich rules over the poor, and so if you owe somebody, right? If you owe somebody because their money put you in office, I mean, there's got to be some loyalty to that. And so we have to realize that, and we do want to do this. We do want to encourage everyone to vote. If you're here in North Carolina, you know that early voting has begun. And so just remember that make your vote count. Make your vote count by going out, placing your vote. And it's just important. Early voting is open. Go get your votes in. Be a part of the process. But back to the scripture, right? The borrower is servant to the lender. Just think about that. Think about that if you owe someone money, you got to pay that, right? You're servant to debt, and it's just like, man, we got to look at it for what it really is. When you owe money, you just don't have the freedom that you have if you don't. And I think that's just the way it is. And as we unpack this today, we talk about debt, and we're going to even talk about, one of the subjects is good debt versus bad debt. But we have to keep everything in context of the scripture and what the word says and all that. And, one of the things I really loved this week on our show that we had last Thursday night, we had Pastor DeForest Soares, and he talked about the prodigal son. And we always talk about prodigal son in terms of how his righteous or his lifestyle and all that. But the problem was he didn't know how to manage money, man. And so we really got to start to unpack this thing in terms of what we were talking about last week in terms of credit. This week, we're talking about loans and debt. And the magic question that we have that Marlon and I want to ask everyone is we got a question, and we want you to participate with us in the chat box. I'm just looking here at some of the things Evelyn said. The amount of debt and loans you have define what you can and can't do in your life. All right. Leslie said loans and debt can hurt you. Absolutely. And we realize that it can hurt. It can hurt you. And so it's very important that we have a good grasp on this thing called debt. And Marlon, one of the things that you and I talked about is joining this campaign, this movement of debt reduction. And that, our good friend now, Pastor Soares and D-Free movement is doing is eliminating debt. They have a goal of eliminating $1 billion worth of debt, $1 billion worth of debt. And there's a whole website. We might bring that up later and let folks look at it. But we're looking at participating as a group in terms of let's be a part of this movement to eliminate $1 billion worth of debt. All right. So love the Message Bible. Cecilia put that in the chat box. The poor are always ruled over by the rich. So don't borrow and put yourself under their power. Don't allow yourself to be servant to your debt. Wow, that's pretty powerful. Love that from the Message Bible. And so, loans and debt, man, it's a huge topic, and we got to unpack this thing. So Marlon, come on the screen with me if you're ready. Let's ask this magic question that we have, and we want you to put your answer in the chat box. Now, the other thing we want to go back and clarify, if you want to make a comment, and we want you guys to do that, want you to be able to unmute, raise your hand. If you hit participants, I do believe if you hit participants, you'll see a button down there, a hand, that you can raise your hand. We can unmute you, allow you to chime in on the topic, our opening question for the day. Marlon, what's that question?
The question is, Is it good to loan money to family and friends? Is it good to loan money to family and friends? Type in your chat box. What do you think? What is your answer to that? All right, we're gonna talk today. Be real, be straight. Is it good to loan money to family and friends?
All right, let's see what we say. Let's see what people say about that. All right, chat in the chat. Oh man, they're lighting it up. They're lighting it up.
Oh my God, y'all are rough, Jack. Y'all are rough. Okay. Kim, hey, Tony. Kim said absolutely no. Don't loan money if you expect to get it back. Oh my goodness. Tony said nope, but you can help them in some capacity. I love it.
Man, listen, man, we got to go back and unpack some of these. What I really want to do, man, as we're going through this, somebody please raise your hand and come on and tell us. We want to go back and look at some of these, Marlon?
Yeah, so, definitely.
You said nope, but you can help someone in other capacity. You just said that. Absolutely do not loan money if you expect to get it back. I mean, some people just like, no. It depends, okay? I like that. Brad says it depends. Maybe Brad, raise your hand. You can come on with us and tell us what you mean by it depends. Let's unpack that.
I also I like the fact that many people say, hey, you can give it, but don't expect it in return. Because we're going to unpack that, I know, but I just want to comment on those that have written that down, because that's real talk. When you give it, because it changes the relationship. I've loaned money, and then I call those friends, and I just want to call to say hello, and they don't answer my phone call. I mean, this is real. So I think, I love for those that you said, no, it depends. No, if you don't expect it back, then hey, it's a gift. It's not a loan. But, like you said, if Brad wants to jump on or anybody want to raise their hand, type that in. Do we have somebody? Timothy Day, are you ready, brother?
Come on.
Yeah, I'm ready. I typed in the comments no, but I truly agree that you need to do what you can to help out, but give it in a spirit of love, not expecting it back in return. If you get it back, just receive it as a blessing back to you. But, truly helping out family is important, but don't give with the anticipation of expecting it back.
Right. That's real talk. Thank you, Timothy. I mean, I think that, that's the key, man. Your expectation, and to give is biblical, right? I mean, you give, right, Tony? I mean, that's we give, we have a giving spirit. But I love what you said about the expectation, right? Because if I'm expecting it back, then, what if they hit some other hard times and they can't make good on when they said they're going to give it back? It could change the relationship. So, that's powerful, Timothy.
Yeah, just to add to that, I've had situations, I've helped out someone and they owe you money, and then you go to their house and you see they bought new furniture or new whatever, and it's like, well, you owe me money. So do it without expecting it back.
That's good, man. Good, man. That's good. Because it can change the dynamics of a relationship for sure.
Right.
Money, when money gets in there, it definitely could. So who else? Anybody else have their hand raised?
Kimberly, I don't know if Kimberly wants to come on, but Kimberly said, don't co-sign for a car for your child. Woo! Disaster.
Wow.
Come on, Kimberly. Come on, share with us. Unpack that, Kimberly. You can unmute your line.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay. Yes, I co-signed for my son, which I really did not want to co-sign for him. He was in college. Everything was laid out for him as far as scholarships was concerned. Went back and forth up to Greensboro, put a lot of mileage on my car. He decided then to enlist in the Army Reserves, which then he would have to find a way from Greensboro to Winston-Salem, which meant that I would have to take him. So he pleaded, Mom, Mom, Mom. I sat there and I said, no, 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 no. But I didn't want to have to get up early in the morning on the weekend to take him to the Army Reserve. And he cornered me, and he was at the dealership and called me on the phone and asked me to come there. And I did, just to hear it out. And you know, once you're in the car dealership, you're sitting there and you're like, oh gosh, I don't want to do this. But then you have the gentleman, the sales rep, my son looking at me. I co-signed on the loan, regrettably. Time passed, and then he says it's his car. However, he was on my insurance, and then he didn't have a job, but then he wants to say it's his car. So the mentality of co-signing is always assumed it's their car, but it's on my credit and my insurance. And, you know, people start feeling, as my mom used to say, you feeling yourself. My son started feeling himself. And it was a disaster with him thinking, and I hate to say this for young men, but then you get behind the wheel, and then he thought he was somebody and would get tickets and everything else. And it just became a disaster, and we fell out. We really fell out. But now he's older, and he's feeling that brunt of that pain. Now he's in real life. He's living life on life terms of dealing with credit and trying to get a car and everything else. The car was total, actually.
Wow.
It was total, and he's lucky to be alive. And I thank God for that, because he wanted to do what he wanted to do, but things happen for a reason. He's still living. Everything is good, but God takes things and gives things to us for a reason. God took that car away. He now has to pay for his own car and his own insurance. And I thank God for, unfortunately, the way it happened, but that took the insurance off of me and the car. And now he's on his own with his car.
Wow.
So never co-sign, because it can be a disaster, because of the responsibility and accountability is not there for someone that's young.
Well, you know, and she brings up a very good point, because we have to understand that when we co-sign, what we're really co-signing is saying, hey, if the borrower does not pay this, I'm going to pay it. And it has implications on your credit. It has implications on your budget. And like you said, so co-signing is just almost, it's the same as loaning, really. Because what you're saying is, if that person doesn't do it, then I'm going to be responsible for it. So I appreciate you sharing that, Kim. And I know Kim Morrison also has her hand up. What would you like to share, Kim?
Well, thank you. Good morning. What I was going to share has already been stated, so I don't need to regurgitate it. But the important key points have been brought out in terms of, you know, how it does change.
I think we lost it. All right. So
I may or may not get this back, but the person that owes you tends to, for whatever reason, call it guilt, shame, or whatever, instead of them coming to say to you and be honest about this situation, hey, I thought I was going to be able to give this back to you at this time, but can I get a little bit more time? Or, you know, can you work with me? Can I just give it to you in installments, or what have you? So that's an integrity issue on their part. But I think as long as your heart is in the right place, you're giving what you're giving, not giving it as a loan, even though you may state it as a loan, but in your heart of hearts knowing, hey, I'm not expecting this back. And if I get it back, praise God. But if I don't, I'm not going to allow it to change the dynamic of the relationship.
Wow. Thank you.
That's awesome. And you know, when we talk about this, we always talk about it from the standpoint of should you loan to family or friends? But let's reverse that. Should you borrow from family or friends? Because the other thing is that if you're on the borrowing end of it and your intentions may be very well, but what if you run into a situation where you can't pay it back? Now you're feeling the guilt because you don't have the ability to pay it back or whatever happens. And so that it has two sides to it. And so I think we have to be very careful about loaning to family and friends. And also, if you're on the other end of that, borrowing from it. And, you know, and she mentioned a little earlier, she mentioned the car, man. And my dad, he would talk about like one of his cousins, relatives that he had co-signed on a car. And, you know, my dad ended up having to pay for the car because he didn't pay for it. And man, my dad talked about that for 20, 30 years later, you know. And so it just really could cement, it really could do some damage to your relationship. There were so many great comments, Marlon. I don't know, do we want to hit a couple more of them?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to, you know, Brad wrote Proverbs 11:15, and, you know, I love that. Pulled that up. And it basically says, you know, whoever puts up security, you know, money for a stranger will suffer surely. But whoever refuses to shake hands and pledge is safe. And so again, you know, we're not saying, you know, it's an absolute do this, do that. We don't want you to walk away with that. It's a case-by-case scenario, but we also want you to understand that, you know, you have to use wisdom, right? We just had a mother share a real life story. And again, we're talking about debts and loans. And Tony asked, you know, is it okay for you to borrow money, right? I mean, there are times for all of us, we go through some valley experiences. And so again, you know, our intention is really to just open up the conversation so at least we are aware, that at least we're conscious. Because again, you know, a lot of people can get in trouble, you know, by co-signing, by loaning money. We heard about different relationships. I know myself, I've given money. Next thing you know, people don't respond. So that to me is really powerful. And I see we got Vixian that also wants to share. Maybe we'll take Vixian and then we'll come on, because as you said, Tony, this will be a lively discussion.
And you guys, I want to say this too. Thank you for making comments, because we really want it to be a dialogue and not just, you know, Marlon and I here, you know, monologuing to you guys. And feel free, everyone, to turn your camera on when you're ready to make a comment. We'd love to see your faces. And so feel free to do that. So go ahead, V.
Hi, I came in a little late, but I was like, "Ooh, this is good." On the co-signing part, now I've been on the co-signing and the borrowing part. I've been on both ends. Like on the co-signing, my brother actually co-signed on a vehicle for me, and you better believe that those payments was made on time and ahead of time. But I think you all said it perfectly when it's a case by case.
I think you're muted. I think you went mute.
Can you hear me now?
There we go. There we go.
Okay. I was saying, you know, it's a case by case thing. And if you see someone who is not good with their finances, you see the pattern of them paying their bills late all the time. So I don't think that would be a good candidate to co-sign for. But I've had to borrow, but I make sure I pay back. But then I've had people borrow, and like you say, they get ghost on you. They don't, you know, you don't see them anymore. But I think it's a case by case thing. But no, when you co-sign, if that's a 5-year loan, 20-year loan, you're on the hook for that many years. So
Absolutely.
be, you know, wise and smart in regarding that. But it can break up friendships and ruin relationships. So yeah, that's all I had to.
Thank you. Thank you for those comments. Well, Marlon, man, we better jump into the lesson today.
Right.
Great discussion. Great discussion. We love that. And so, you know, again, it is in our topics of loan and debt, good debt, bad debt. I encourage you all to go back and read the comments and go back and watch the replay of this, because there's a lot of great stuff in there. Due to time, we can't address each one of them, but I've seen some great things in there, great other scriptures that were referenced in there. And so now let's talk about debt, good debt versus bad debt. And this is a topic that sometimes you run into that people say is this a good debt or a bad debt? And so Marlon, let's take a look at the definitions of the two. What is good debt?
Well, basically, Tony, you know, it's on the slide, and I think this is really great, right? You know, good debt is the kind we use to buy assets, things like, you know, real estate, stocks, and businesses. The good of the good debt is to purchase items which we think will go up in value, so we increase our wealth. So, you know, I guess basically it's things that will put things in your pocket, right? You know, income, right? You know, whereas bad debt, you know, is basically loans we use to purchase items that go down, parenthesis, depreciate in value. Things like cars. You know, a brand new car, once you drive it off that lot, that bad boy's gone down in value. So, you know, I guess, you know, it's again, one of the things that we're striving to do in this 8-week course is just have us be more conscious, you know, as to what you're doing. So that's what it is, Tony.
Yeah, and I would love for people to put into the chat box some other examples of good debt, bad debt. And let's see what we got. Jennifer put good debt is your house. So real estate. Any other examples anyone want to share? Credit cards. Credit cards are bad debt. And generally speaking, that's good. Kim Morrison says education. Education is good debt. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. I'd love to kind of unpack that one for a minute. You guys tell me, what is student loans? Is it good debt or is it bad debt? Matter of fact, we even have a slide just for that. Student loans. Give us your opinion. Is student loans good debt or bad debt? Now, we got Kim Morrison says good debt, and we got Leslie that says it's bad debt. So I'd love for somebody to, if you guys want to raise your hand, give us why you say student loan is good debt. And then Leslie, if you don't mind, you can raise your hand and tell us why you say it's bad debt. And there's a lot of different opinions as I look at them, you know, anyone. So if someone would come on and talk about it as a good debt, and if someone else would come on and talk about it in terms of it being bad debt. And I just would love for you guys just to unpack, give us your opinion on it, because this is really a hot topic now. And when you think about all of the student loan debt that's out there, you think about the amount of student loan debt, and not everyone's graduation is going to have a Robert Smith come in and pay off all the debt, like he did at Morehouse. So what is it? So if anyone would raise their hand and let us know who we got. All right, V, what do you say?
Well, I had said it could be both, but I can go with the bad debt. Like my son was a career college student. You know, when you go to school and you have no major really, and if you continuously get that and you don't have a target graduation date, those bills can add up. Then it can become a bad debt because you're just racking up bills. You know, you're racking up dollars, and it can turn to be bad because it can amount to quite a bit of money.
Anybody else? Evelyn, please share.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Yeah, I've thought about this a lot, and I think lots of times we think about good versus bad debt based on what it is. But to me, at the end of the day, it really depends on how you handle it. Because if you handle it in a responsible way, it shows up on your credit as you being responsible. If you handle it in an irresponsible way, it shows up as you being irresponsible. So to me, it may be looked at as being good debt because I have a house, or bad debt because I have credit cards. But at the end of the day, the way it truly impacts me is based on how I pay that debt off.
That's good. You know, and I think there's a lot of truth to that, Evelyn. Thank you for sharing in terms of how we handle it. How we handle it is important. So, Kim, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I feel like I need to there we go. I feel like I need to defend my comment here. So the reason I said it can be good debt, but I definitely know that it can be bad debt as well. But my perspective on that was if I'm using money, investing money to take a certification, to get a certification in a particular field that's going to advance my income level, that could be a good debt, a good investment that I incur. But I definitely agree that racking up bills, staying in school, racking up the bills of student loans definitely is bad. So I just wanted to clarify my thoughts on that.
Well, and thank you. And here's the bottom line, people. I hate to, take bail out on this, but the answer really is depends, right? It really depends. And the thing about it is, the other thing that really comes to mind for me is that anything in moderation is if you do it in moderation. And so, like, for example, we can do some things if you don't have the scholarships, and there's a lot of scholarships out there. We have a wonderful resource and the Scholar Mom right here in Charlotte, and there's a lot of great resources, scholarships, grants, those type of things. But if you don't have all the money that you need to go to school, there are ways that you can do to reduce that. You got CPP, you got community colleges, you got local colleges that maybe you can save in room and board, UNC Charlotte if you're here in Charlotte. And so there's other ways that you can do to help control the amount of debt that you go in, because again, I think it's in moderation. And then don't allow I think someone talked about just being in school and not graduating, and now you've borrowed that money and you've gone to school and you don't have the degree to go with it to get the better job and all those type of things. And the other thing that you have to look at is this: what you're majoring in, what is your degree going to be in? Is it going to be in a field that allows you to be able to pay that debt, that amount of debt, and all those types of things? And so you got to look at the whole picture of it, the whole thing. And it's just not, and I know we kind of baited you guys a little bit by saying, is it good or bad? Because, I mean, it really does depend. It really depends on it. And I love what Evelyn said about how you handle it. It's the same thing with credit. Credit is not a bad thing, but how you handle your credit. And so this is true also in terms of when we're talking about student loans or any kind of debt. Because let's take, for example, we talk about automobiles, right? That's usually one of the things that we talk about all the time, is that automobile is not a good debt. Well, that really just depends, because if you need reliable transportation then to get to work, then maybe that is not necessarily bad debt. But, it's, again, what type of car you're buying. You know, you don't need a Bentley to go to your job at McDonald's, right? So it depends on what it is. You got to look at the whole situation. And so that's another one, car. Or maybe you buy a car because you have we have Lyft and we have Uber, and you have all these other things that you actually can use your car to produce income. And so you have to look at the whole thing in its total. But we really just want to raise your consciousness. And when we're thinking about things like, and dealing with the controversial things like student loans and borrowing the family and loaning the family and good debt versus bad debt, is to step back and evaluate it from a holistic standpoint and not an emotional standpoint. So take your emotions out of it and say, is this something that I want to take on or not? Is this good debt for me or is it not? And then here's the thing that I believe though. I believe that we ought to have a desire to get rid of all of our debt. And you know, just like we're saying about the scripture, is that the borrower is subject to lender. So what we want to do at this point is we really need to shift. Our time is running really short, but we want to show a video. In the video, it's going to give you the two most popular methods for reducing your debt. One is called the snowball method, and one is called the avalanche method. And if you have used either one of those methods, please put it in the chat box, which method you've used. If you got and if you got a comment, or if you've had experience, a great experience, put that in. But Chris, let's roll the video, and this is going to break down the two methods of debt reduction: avalanche versus snowball.
Hey everyone, Daniel here from Next Level Life, and today I've been ignoring another big area of personal finance: debt. And I don't know how I can be a self-respecting personal financial YouTuber if I don't at least touch on that subject. So today I'm going to be talking about debt. More specifically, I'm going to be talking about two very popular ways that people try to pay off their debt. And that is the debt snowball strategy and the debt avalanche strategy. I'm going to be talking about how both strategies work, as well as the benefits and downsides to each. And then I'm going to wrap it all up by comparing the two in a very similar example to see which one actually works better. First, I'm going to be talking about the debt snowball. How does it work? Well, the debt snowball, as made famous by Dave Ramsey, tells you that you should be paying off the debt with the lowest balance first. Regardless of what the interest rates on all your debts are, you order them from smallest balance to largest balance, and you pay them off in that order, making minimum payments on all of them except for the smallest one, and attacking that smallest one with a vengeance. Throwing everything you've got at it, selling so many things that the kids think they're next. And you do that until you've paid off that smallest debt. And once you've paid off that smallest debt, you take the minimum payment that you were using towards that smallest debt, as well as all the extra money you were throwing at it, and you move it to the new smallest debt. And when I get to the example, I'll put some numbers to it so it makes a little more sense. But that's basically the concept. The benefits, of course, have been found to be very psychological in nature. Because you're paying off the smallest balance first, you see progress very quickly, at least in comparison to other debt payment strategies. And as each month goes by and you pay off more and more of your debts, you get less and less bills coming into the household, and that motivates you even more to continue paying off debt. The momentum continues to build up until you're finally debt-free. That's the theory anyway. But there has actually been some evidence to back it up. In fact, the Harvard Business Review did do a study recently and found that people using the debt snowball did tend to actually finish paying off their overall debt more often than people who use other strategies. But that's not to say that there aren't downsides to using this strategy as well. The main one that people throw at the debt snowball is that it's not the most mathematically efficient way to pay off debt. And that is absolutely true. Probably the most mathematically efficient way to pay off debt is by using the debt avalanche. So let's get into that. The debt avalanche is, as one of my finance professors back in college would often say, similar to that snowball, only different. The debt avalanche says that instead of ordering your debt from smallest balance to largest balance, you should instead order them from the highest interest rate to the lowest interest rate. and pay them off in that order. The benefits, of course, is that you do get out of debt faster than, say, with the debt snowball strategy, because you're paying the higher interest rate debts off first, which means you'll end up paying less interest overall in the long run. And with more of your money going to principal, the debts do get paid off faster. The downsides to the debt avalanche, in my opinion, are that it doesn't really take emotions into account. And as I said just a moment ago, studies like the Harvard Business Review have found that the debt snowball does tend to lead to people paying off more of their overall debt in the long run. So let's go through a quick example here to show how these two strategies work. Let's take John and Jane. John is going to use the debt snowball to pay off his debts. Jane is going to use the debt avalanche. For the sake of simplicity, I'm going to assume that they both make the same amount of income and they both have the same amount of taxes, the same amount of expenses, all that jazz, same amount of debts. And again, just to keep things simple, I'm going to leave it to 3 debts. I'm going to have them have a $25,000 credit card balance, $20,000 in student loans, and a $10,000 car loan. The interest rates for both John and Jane are going to be 15% on the credit card, 4.45% on the student loans, and 4.21% on the car loan. I chose these numbers mainly because they seem to be right around average. So the minimum monthly payments on the 3 debts will be $750 a month to the credit card, $200 a month to the student loan, and $185 to the car loan. The income for both John and Jane is going to be $59,000. They're both going to have expenses of $24,000, and as for taxes, they're going to take the $24,000 standard deduction and pay about $8,750 a year to the government, which means that both after taxes and expenses are going to start with about $1,052 left over at the end of every month after making their minimum payments on their debts. And I did the numbers this way because it leaves the credit card balance as the biggest balance and the highest interest rate. So we're going to see as big a difference as we can between the debt snowball and debt avalanche. So we'll start with John. As I said, John will be using the debt snowball to pay off his debts. Since he's using the debt snowball, he's going to start by trying to throw everything he's got at the car loan, which is $10,000 in his case. He'll make the $185 minimum payment on the car loan, as well as the $200 and $750 payments on the student loans and credit cards, and throw all of that $1,052 that he has left over at the end of the month onto the car loan. And in doing this, he will have the car loan paid off in full in 9 months. Now his snowball payment will increase because he's no longer having to pay $185 a month on a car loan, which means his new snowball payment is $1,237 a month, now that he's going to be starting in month 10 paying off the student loans, since that's the next lowest balance. And again, for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to assume that the balance is still $20,000 for the student loan. So starting from month 10 of his debt payment strategy, he will start knocking out that student loan as fast as he can. And running the numbers, we find that at the end of the 23rd month of his overall debt payment plan, he has knocked out the student loans completely. Now, all he has left is that credit card bill, which again, for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to assume is still $25,000. John's snowball payment again increases because he's no longer having to put $200 a month to make the minimum payments on his student loans, which means his snowball payment goes from $1,237 a month to $1,437 a month. He makes the minimum payment on his credit card and throws all of that snowball payment at it as well and pays off the credit card in full at the end of the 35th month. So in about 3 years, John managed to pay off a $10,000 car loan, a $20,000 student loan, and a $25,000 credit card bill. But how does that compare to Jane? Jane is using the debt avalanche, as I said. She has the same debts, same income, same expenses. Except she's paying off the debts in a different order. Using the debt avalanche, she pays off the debt with the highest interest rate first, regardless of balance, meaning that she's going to throw everything at the credit card bill right from the start. And what we see is Jane takes quite a long time to get that credit card bill paid off, which is understandable. It has a very high interest rate and it was the largest debt to begin with. But whereas John managed to pay off his first debt and see some progress at the end of 9 months, Jane doesn't see any progress until the end of the 16th month, almost twice as long as John. However, on the bright side, she does have the credit card bill paid off in full. So the biggest hurdle has been done. And her snowball payment, which again started at $1,052, just like John's, has now increased to over $1,800. because she no longer has to make the $750 at 4.45%. She'll do that starting in month 17 of her debt repayment plan, and she'll have it paid off in full by the end of the 26th month. Now all she has left is the car loan. And she can, again, just like John, take that $200 that she no longer has to pay for her student loans and lump it into her Avalanche payments, which is now over $2,000 a month. So as you can imagine, she pays off that $10,000 loan pretty darn quickly. In fact, by the end of the 30th month, she is debt-free. So she managed to pay off the same amount of debt as John in 5 fewer months. And the big reason for that, of course, is the difference in interest payments that these two made. John, using the debt snowball, kind of left his credit card bill until the end. It was the highest balance, it was the highest interest rate, he accumulated a lot of interest payments. In fact, he paid over $10,000 in interest over those 35 months. Meanwhile, Jane, in her 30 months of debt repayment, only paid about $4,700 in interest because she knocked out that credit card right away. So looking at the two and comparing them, there's not really any question as to which one's going to get you out of debt faster. The debt avalanche will get you out of debt faster if you stick to it. The big reason why the debt snowball is so popular, though, is because it's very hard to stick to the debt avalanche when you're not really seeing any tangible progress for so long. Remember, Jane did not have her first debt paid off until 16 months into her debt repayment strategy. That is a long time to not see much progress, even if you know it's going to a good cause. So which debt repayment strategy is right for you really comes down to just knowing yourself and how you would handle these sort of situations. Which is going to motivate you more? Knowing that you're going to get out of debt faster, even when you're not seeing any tangible progress right away? Or seeing the tangible progress, seeing less and less bills coming in the mail every month, even if it means you're going to pay a little bit more interest in the long run? So what did you think about these two debt payoff strategies? Have you heard of them? Did you learn something? Do you have another debt payoff strategy that you're using? Let me know in the comment section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I've got videos coming. I will be uploading every single
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
All right, so great. We got a lot of great comments. And listen, I just want to recap real quick, just as you guys saw in the video, the avalanche method. The avalanche method, again, is to pay off your highest interest rate loan first. So the benefits there is you get out of debt faster, you pay less in interest. The downside is it doesn't take emotions into account. So you really are not getting those emotional wins along the way. And so that's probably the biggest downside of the avalanche method. And then the snowball method is that you pay the lowest debt off first. So you pay the one that has the smallest balance, then you roll that up and you move it to the next one. And then you roll that up, move it to the next one. The key is with both of these is that, and this is what you got to do, this is what everyone has to do, is your assignment is to go and make a list of all of your debt. Every single debt you have, you want to list, you want to the name, you want to list the amount, the outstanding balance, the interest rate, and the payment amount. And what you want to do is you want to put the minimum payment on everything except for the debt that you're looking to pay off. And that's used in it, whether you're using avalanche or snowball method, that part of the process is the same. And so again, we had some great people. Most people have put in here that they prefer the snowball method, but we had a couple people that actually, and I don't know if you want to come off mute, raise your hand if you'd like to share with us why you like the avalanche method. But if you're using the avalanche, please do that. And then if someone wants to share a little bit about their snowball method, we can do that as well. And then sometimes it's really a combination of things, right? sometimes it's a combination because you may be using a little bit of both. And I think the biggest part about it is just making the commitment that you're going to pay the debt off and that you're going to be going towards having that debt-free lifestyle. And so, and then again, there's a lot of great comments, a lot of great things about both of them. Marlon, what's your take, Marlon? What do you think?
Yeah, I think, again, you know, I go back to consciousness. I think a lot of people are sleepwalking. And so now you have two options, you know, the snowball or the avalanche. And I think the biggest thing is just, as Tony said, the assignment for today is to go ahead and write down your debt, right? Just itemize it. You know, what's the balance? What's the minimum payment? And then you decide, you know, and again, you can always reach out to us, info@therealmoneycoach.com, because we are in partnership with you. And so if you want to, you know, bounce some ideas off of us, we're here for you. So again, info@therealmoneycoach.com. But again, taking action and having that spirit of, you know, this is great because I'm no longer going to be a borrower. I'm no longer going to be a slave. All right. That's, I mean, I know Tony used one of the scriptures talking about the servant, but you know, just let that sink in. Be a slave to the, you know, like to the master, right? MasterCard, American Express, Chase, Citi Card, right? I mean, I'm just being real because again, you know, to be free, debt free, there's just, wow, it's amazing, right? To owe no man nothing. And, you know, again, if along, you know, we talked about the school, the college, and so on and so forth, you know, it's just having an understanding and not keeping up with the Joneses. I think that is the trick of the enemy, to think that we got to have certain status and so on and so forth. And, you know, I'm going to ask Chris to put up on the screen or type it in the chat box, you know, this, the billionDollarPaydown.com, because, you know, that is amazing where, you know, Dr. Soares, as Tony talked about, you know, it, you know, has a movement where, you know, you can start a group, you know, saying, hey, my family, my friends and I, my organization, we're going to eliminate debt. And so it's right on time. So whatever you choose, snowball or avalanche, you know, just stick to it. And again, if we can be of assistance, info@therealmoneycoach, send us an email because we'd love to share more with you about how you and your family can really have that financial freedom. That's what we're talking about. So thanks, Tony.
Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to really get a chance to dig into the debt-free movement that Dr. Soares is doing, and we're looking at, you know, having a WINS group. I'll be, you know, talking with Dr. Frazier about doing this for WINS across the board as being a part of that, so we can be measuring how much debt we are eliminating, and we'll be able to track it. As you can see on the screen right now, they have already paid off $26 million in debt. And so we want to be a part of the movement. He's a great guy. Like I said, he was on our other show this week. And so we want to be a part of that. And we want to be able to say, hey, through WINS and through the WINS movement and the WINS classes, and there's like 3 of them going on right now, that this is how much debt has been eliminated by WINS and those who are participating in our classes. And so I think it's pretty awesome. And, you know, here's the thing. I think Marlon hit it on the head when he said the most important thing is to commit. And the first step, because let's be honest, many of us don't know about our debts. And so we've been talking about creating a spending plan or a budget. We did that in week 2, a couple weeks ago. And so we should start to be doing those. And so that's really your cash flow. And now what we're talking about is now making a list of your liabilities, the things that you owe, you know, all the debt, and then let's start tackling how we're going to get rid of that debt. And again, whether you use snowball or whether you use avalanche, the fact is that we want to work on getting out of debt. Now, for many of us, that means that we got to cut back in some other areas. you know, we got to cut back in some other areas so that we can have the money to put towards whichever method we're using. It could mean delayed gratification. It could mean selling some stuff that you're not using. It could mean, you know, starting a side business. It could mean getting another part-time job. It could mean a number of different things. But once the commitment is made to you're going to get out of debt, and you can make it happen. And I can tell you, once you commit to saving and getting out of debt, you'd be surprised at how well and how much you can do. And so we just want some testimonies, right? We want you guys to come back and share with us how it's going, how it's working. We challenged you all to, you know, start saving, have a savings goal. So by the time we get to the end of this 8 weeks that you started saving, and understanding this whole thing about debt. And here's the thing, one of the things that Marlon loves to talk about, the rule of 72. The rule of 72 is how many years it takes for your money to double, right? Well, rule of 72 can work for you or against you. If it's you saving, it's working for you. If it's you are in debt, it works against you. And so we just want to encourage everyone. Let's go ahead. Let's make a commitment to get out of debt. And Marlon, I think we had another great class. We had some great discussion. I want to just thank everyone for participating in the chat. I wish we certainly could get to every single one of your comments, but you guys were very active today. Thank you all who came off of mute, shared with us your comments. That all enriches the class. So Marlon, anything you want to say to close us out?
Yeah, we'd love for you right now. Go ahead and type in the chat box, you know, what's one action item? What's one commitment you're going to make as a result of today's program? Type it in the chat box, and I'll let Tony, you know, look at those comments, because we want to celebrate you. We want to really just edify you, because again, life and death are in the power of the tongue. And so, you know, I believe by writing it down, write the vision, make it plain that he that pick it up can run with it. And we're in partnership, right? You know, wisdom, to be in wise counsel. So these WINS programs, and I want to say thank you, just like Tony said, you know, thank you for your participation. Because, you know, it's one thing to talk the talk. It's another thing to walk the talk. And, you know, and the beautiful thing is we give each other grace. None of us are perfect. And I think, you know, I was on a prayer call this morning at 8:30 called the Presence Call, and it's just amazing. And if anybody wants to, you know, even get some information on, you know, a prayer call on Saturday morning, you know, you can send an email to info@TheRealMoneyCoach, because I'm very clear that, you know, this is a spiritual game. And, you know, again, as we talk about the whole, you know, really looking at from the standpoint, don't be a borrower, right? Don't be a slave to the lender. I mean, you know, we can talk it, but I mean, let that really slide in. Let that really be real for you. So, you know, for me, I think it's very important that we really anchor that. You know, the rich rule over the poor. The rich rule over the poor. And the borrower is a slave to the lender. I mean, that is, I mean, I don't know about you, but when I've had credit card debt, I mean, it just, I mean, really, I can relate, you know, where, man, that credit card bill's coming up. Oh my gosh, am I going to have enough money? And, you know, it's like, you're not even living a joyful life, because you really are a slave. You really are. And so, you know, again, this is exciting. And when it really comes down to it, we're in this together. So I want to thank each and every one of you. Tony, do we have anybody in the chat box? Any commitments that have been made?
Oh man, yeah, we got some good ones here, man. We got, I'm gonna itemize my debt and choose my strategy. That's Fontella.
Nice.
Tony says, I'm working on a few side hustles to pay down my debt. Leslie said, pay off one of my medical bills. Let's see, Tamala said, thanks for the session. Debt freedom is the goal.
Yes.
And then Hamilton said, to everyone, great class. Action item, pay off last debt and invest that money in 1 year. Love it. Timothy said, I have to pay off credit cards. I only have one. I got to pay off, also pay off car, right?
Yes.
Pay off my home in 9 years.
Okay.
I have a goal. Let's see. Kimberly said, pull and see my debt. Look at it in reality and get rid of it. Love that. Pam said, I'll be exploring joining the $1 Million Pay Down Debt Free. And again, we will bring you more information regarding that in terms of, the debt-free movement and how we're going to be a part of it and how we will be a group so we can track the progress of our group there. So we'll bring you more information on that next week. And man, it's just been another awesome. I get inspired, man. I get inspired every time we do it.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you. As Tony said, we are inspired because, again, iron sharpens iron. And so when we hear these commitments, we all elevate. And that's why we, give the opportunity for people to share, because faith comes by hearing the word, right? And so, we're hearing people's passion. We're hearing the Spirit of God say, let's do this thing. And so on that, we just want to say thank you. And again, you'll be getting the recap video, the email with the assignment. Send an email to us, info@therealmoneycoach.com. And the reason why I keep on sharing that is because I want you to understand you're not alone, but you have accountability partner opportunities, just by you doing your assignment and then sending it in. I mean, that to me is like, wow, okay, I'm really going to take it to the next level. And so again, 1 + 1 is not 2. 1 + 1 standing side by side is 11. So with that being shared, thank you for today. And, again, Chris Jackson just continues to amaze all of us. And we'll have some more music, next Saturday. I think he's set it up, really rocking and rolling. And so with that being shared, I kept on saying info@therealmoneycoach. Thanks, Tony. Yeah, what is it? Wins Fall 2020 @Gmail?
I believe that's correct.
Wins Fall 2020 @Gmail. We got so many things happening, y'all. I mean, either email is going to get to us, but yeah, you can send it to wins, WINDS, fall, FALL, 2020 @gmail.com. I'm just so excited. We do shows, and definitely just realize that you're loved and you're appreciated. With that being shared, I would like to close out with this. Without action is just a dream. A lot of action without a vision is merely a passing of time. But a vision with action can change the world. I am Marlon Smith in partnership with Tony Jackson and Chris Jackson. And we, on behalf of Dr. George Frazier and this WINS movement, we say thank you. We'll see you next Saturday, 11 a.m. Remember, there's greatness within you. Stay blessed.